The smartest way to deal with toxic people, every single one of us at some point will face people who drain our energy, distort our truth, and try to derail our destiny. Toxic people aren't just annoying, they're dangerous to your growth, your peace, and your purpose. But here's the truth. You don't rise by wrestling in the mud with small minds. You rise by mastering your response, protecting your energy, and moving with clarity and conviction. The smartest way to deal with toxic people isn't about revenge, it's about results. Today, I'm going to show you how to stand firm, stay focused, and elevate above the noise without losing your power. Stop negotiating with negativity. Walk away like your future depends on it, because it does. There comes a moment in life when you have to make a decision, not just about where you're going, but about what you refuse to carry with you anymore. And let me tell you, negotiating with toxic people is like trying to bargain with a storm. You can't talk it down, you can't reason with it, and if you stand in its way too long, it's going to drown you. Toxic people thrive on chaos. They live in a mental space where drama is oxygen and confusion is currency. Every time you engage, every time you explain yourself, every time you lower your energy to meet them at their level, you lose. You lose time, you lose clarity, and worst of all, you lose momentum. The smartest way to deal with toxic people isn't to outtalk them or outsmart them. It's to outdistance them. When you're building something meaningful, your vision, your business, your legacy, you don't have time to keep stopping at every bark along the path. You don't see lions turning around for barking dogs. Why? Because the lion knows its identity, the lion knows where it's headed, and the lion knows that entertaining distractions is a poor investment of its power. Toxic people will try to bait you into conversations that go nowhere. They'll press your buttons, twist your words, and when it's all over, nothing has changed, except now you're exhausted and off course. That's not smart, that's expensive, and you pay for it with your peace. Some people are so addicted to conflict, they'll poke at your patience just to feed their own dysfunction. And if you're not careful, they'll convince you that you're the problem. They'll gaslight you until you're questioning your own boundaries. But here's what you need to understand. Protecting your peace is not rude, it's wise. Guarding your energy is not selfish, it's strategic. And walking away doesn't make you weak, it makes you unstoppable. Because when you stop negotiating with negativity, you free your mind to create, to grow, and to lead with authority. We live in a world where people glorify confrontation like it's a badge of honor. I told them off, they say, but let me ask you something. What did it cost you? That mental battle, that emotional hangover, that wasted day where you could have been building instead of battling. You've got to start thinking like a CEO of your own life. CEOs don't attend every argument they are invited to. They don't fight for attention. They focus on outcomes. And if someone in your circle isn't contributing to your progress, then their access needs to be revoked, not renegotiated. Now, I'm not saying you ghost everyone who offends you. I'm talking about a mindset shift where you value your peace over their approval. I'm talking about recognizing when a conversation is a trap, not a bridge. Sometimes silence is your best answer. Sometimes your best defense is distance. And sometimes the wisest thing you can do is to close the chapter, not keep rereading it hoping the story changes. Toxic people don't change because you plead with them. They change when they're forced to face themselves without you enabling their behavior. And let's be real, some of you are exhausted not because life is hard, but because you're carrying people who were never meant to go where you're going. You've allowed emotional liabilities to become part of your daily budget. You keep trying to fix broken people while your own dreams sit on the shelf collecting dust. That's not noble, that's sabotage. Because every moment you spend managing someone else's mess is a moment you're not managing your own mission. You've got to stop being the emergency contact for people who wouldn't call you unless they needed something. You've got to stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. The truth is, there's power in walking away. There's clarity on the other side of distance. There's peace in no longer trying to prove your worth to people who are blind to your value. The most powerful version of you is the one that doesn't flinch when they act up, doesn't argue when they accuse, and doesn't stay when staying costs your sanity. If your future is calling, don't let toxic people answer the phone. If your peace is a priority, stop inviting poison to your table. You don't have to make an announcement. You don't owe them an explanation. Just decide that your growth is more important than their grip. You see, the smartest people don't waste time trying to fix the unfixable. They build beyond it. They recognize that walking away isn't quitting, it's graduating. It's choosing to live on a higher frequency. It's understanding that you can love people from afar and still choose not to let their dysfunction infect your destiny. Because the longer you stay in rooms where your spirit is suffocating, the more you normalize your own decline. But when you finally make the decision to step out of that noise, that chaos, that cycle, you breathe different, you think clearer, you move faster, you rise higher. So the next time a toxic person comes knocking, trying to bait you into another round of emotional warfare, don't answer with words. Answer with action. Walk away, not with bitterness, but with boldness, not with guilt, but with gratitude that you finally learned the lesson, because your future doesn't need you to fight battles that don't build anything. It needs you focused, free, and fierce, so stop negotiating with negativity, close the door, cut the cord, and keep it moving, like your purpose depends on it, because it does. Don't argue with fools. They'll drag you down and beat you with experience. There's a reason the old proverb says, "Never argue with a fool, because from a distance no one can tell who's who." And yet, far too many people waste their precious energy and intellect trying to convince toxic individuals who aren't interested in truth. They're just interested in control. You see, a fool isn't just someone who lacks intelligence. A fool is someone who refuses to grow, resists correction, and thrives in conflict. They don't argue to understand. They argue to dominate, to distract, to disturb your focus. And if you take the bait, if you let yourself get pulled into their pit, you lose, not because you're wrong, but because the fight itself is unworthy of your presence. The smartest people don't step into every ring. They know that some battles, even when won, are still a waste of time. Arguing with fools is like playing chess with a pigeon it knocks over all the pieces, craps on the board, and struts around like it won anyway. That's not the kind of fight you win with facts or logic. That's the kind of fight you win by walking away. Fools specialize in emotional warfare. They'll twist your words, take things out of context, and bait you into emotional reactions that make you look like the problem. That's their game, and they've practiced it a lot longer than you have. They don't fight fair because they're not after truth. They're after drama, and drama is dangerous because it consumes your mental bandwidth. One argument with the wrong person can cost you a day's worth of clarity. One emotional reaction can damage a relationship, a brand, a reputation, and for what? To prove you were right to someone who doesn't even care about being wrong. That's a bad trade. You've got to start thinking with the end in mind. What does this argument build? What does this exchange produce? If the answer is nothing but stress, then it's not worth your voice. It's not about weakness, it's about wisdom. See, wisdom knows when to speak, but it also knows when silence is the most strategic move. Fools crave attention more than truth, and silence starves them. When you stop responding, when you stop feeding their ego, their power begins to shrink, and when their power shrinks, their influence fades. But every time you jump in, every time you try to correct them, fix them, or beat them with better logic, you're giving them exactly what they want, your energy, and energy is expensive. That's why the most powerful people in the world are often the quietest in the room. They don't waste words. They don't try to teach pigs how to sing. It wastes your time and annoys the pig. You've got to protect your reputation by not letting fools write your narrative. The moment you start engaging with them on their level, you legitimize their chaos. It doesn't matter how right you are if you're shouting in a room where nobody listens. Choose your platforms, choose your audience, choose your peace, because arguing with someone committed to misunderstanding you isn't communication. It's self-sabotage. They don't want resolution. They want reaction. And the moment they get that reaction, they win. You think you're proving a point, but what you're really doing is proving you can be pulled into pettiness. That's not strength, that's a setup. Let me make this clear. Some people will say the most outrageous, offensive, irrational things, not because they believe them, but because they know you do. And if they can get you angry, if they can knock you off balance, if they can make you look unhinged while they stay calm and collected, guess what? Now you're the villain. That's what fools do. They weaponize your integrity. They twist your truth into a trap, and if you don't know how to recognize that trap, you'll keep stepping into it, again and again, until one day you realize you've been fighting people who never mattered in rooms that never moved your mission forward. The key is emotional discipline. Every argument isn't worth your answer. Every challenge isn't a call to battle. Sometimes the most powerful response is to elevate, mentally, emotionally, and even physically. Rise above the nonsense, rise above the noise, and keep your eyes locked on where you're going, because fools don't build futures, they burn bridges, and the moment you stop letting them bait you into battles, you start building something that lasts. Your energy, your clarity, your peace, they are your capital. Don't invest them in foolishness. If they don't understand you, that's fine. If they misquote you, that's expected. If they twist your motives, that's their pattern. But if you stay locked in, if you stay focused, if you stay grounded in truth, your results will speak louder than any rebuttal ever could. The only real answer to a fool is a life so powerful, so peaceful, so purpose-driven that it silences every lie without a single word spoken. So the next time someone comes for you with nonsense, trying to bait you into chaos, just smile and remember, this battle isn't yours, it's beneath you. You've got places to go, people to lead, and a legacy to build. Let the fool fight with themselves, because you've got better things to do than argue with someone who's already lost the plot. They may have experience in dragging people down, but you've got expertise in rising above. And that's what makes you unstoppable. Protect your peace like it's your profit margin, because chaos costs. Peace is not just a feeling, it's a form of wealth. And just like money, if you don't protect it, if you don't manage it with intention, it will slip through your fingers, leaving you bankrupt in ways that don't show up on bank statements but wreck your mind, your body, and your dreams. Too many people treat their peace like it's optional, like it's a luxury item reserved for vacations or quiet weekends. But peace is not a break, it's your base. It's the foundation from which all clear decisions, meaningful actions, and powerful breakthroughs flow. Without peace, even the most brilliant ideas get distorted. Without peace, even the most strategic plans crumble under pressure. Without peace, you can have opportunity at your doorstep and still miss it because your mind is too noisy to recognize it. That's why you must protect your peace like it's your profit margin, because chaos always comes with a cost, and it's a cost you can't afford if you're serious about building something that lasts. Every interaction either adds to your peace or subtracts from it. Every conversation, every relationship, every environment either feeds your soul or drains it. And if you don't aud at what you allow in your space, you'll end up spending your energy managing distractions instead of moving toward your destiny. Think about it. How many hours, how many days, How many nights have you lost to anxiety because of a toxic conversation or an unnecessary argument? How many times have you sacrificed your focus to entertain someone else's dysfunction? That's not generosity, that's negligence. And if a CEO mismanages money the way some of us mismanage our mental space, they'd be bankrupt in a year. So why treat your peace like it's anything less than vital? People will test your peace the moment they sense you've found it. The moment you start walking in clarity, in confidence, in calm, you become a target for people who live off chaos. They'll try to provoke you, guilt you, drag you into their drama, not because they want connection, but because they want control. And the moment you start explaining your peace to people committed to chaos, you've already given them too much power. Protecting your peace is not about cutting everyone off. It's about cutting off access to your mind, your time, your emotions from anything that doesn't align with where you're going. That means learning to say no without apology. That means setting boundaries so firm that they echo in your silence. That means knowing that not every phone call needs to be answered, not every message deserves a reply, and not every conflict is your assignment. You have to start treating peace like a business asset. You don't leave it unguarded. You don't let just anybody handle it. You don't allow chaos to walk in and play with it. Because when peace is gone, clarity leaves with it. Creativity dries up, focus fades, and all of a sudden the visionary you were meant to be becomes a survivalist, just trying to make it through the day instead of mastering the day. That's what chaos does. It shrinks your perspective, lowers your energy, and makes you reactive instead of proactive. And if the enemy can't destroy you, he'll distract you. And there's no distraction more deadly than one that looks like a responsibility but acts like a parasite. Now, protecting your peace doesn't mean life will always be quiet. It means you have inner stillness even in the middle of outer storms. It means you don't let noise define your narrative. It means you create a mental environment where focus, purpose, and power can thrive, no matter what's happening around you. And yes, that means letting go of some people. That means walking away from some invitations. That means disappointing folks who were never meant to be pleased by you in the first place. Because peace is not about pleasing others. It's about preserving your mission. You can't build in chaos. You can't grow in toxicity. And you definitely can't hear divine direction when your soul is drowning in other people's dysfunction. Peace isn't passive, it's something you fight for. You earn it by the choices you make daily, the choice to forgive, not for them, but for you. The choice to disconnect, not because you're bitter, but because you're better without the noise. The choice to pause before reacting, to respond with intention instead of impulse. That's the currency of a peaceful life. And if you want to live on that level, you've got to get aggressive about what you allow into your space. You have to be willing to offend people in the short term to protect your purpose in the long term. Because anything that consistently costs you your peace is too expensive, even if it looks like loyalty, even if it feels like obligation, even if it comes dressed as tradition. So I ask you today, what's costing you your peace? Who or what is living rent, free in your head, occupying the space where vision should be? What thoughts, what relationships, what patterns are pulling you out of alignment? Until you confront that, until you get serious about treating peace like the precious asset it is, you'll stay stuck managing chaos instead of multiplying progress. But the moment you draw the line, the moment you decide your mental clarity is worth protecting, the moment you treat your peace like profit, everything changes. You start thinking better. You start choosing better. You start building better because you're finally operating from a place of power, not panic. So protect your peace. Defend it like your dreams depend on it, because they do. Guard it like your future lives in it, because it does. And never apologize for choosing stillness over struggle, clarity over conflict, purpose over pleasing, because when peace is your priority, progress becomes your default. Set boundaries so strong that even your silence screams self-respect. There comes a time in your life when you have to stop asking for people to respect you and start showing them how it's done, without raising your voice, without explaining your worth, and without sacrificing your peace. That time is now, and the only way to command that kind of respect is to set boundaries so strong that even in your silence, people hear the message loud and clear. I know who I am, I know what I tolerate, and I know what I refuse to carry. Boundaries are not barriers, they are bridges between your current self and the highest version of you. They are not walls to keep others out, they are gates to protect your values, your vision, and your energy. And if you don't define them, life will default to chaos, and people will walk all over your purpose like it's a welcome mat. Too many people suffer in silence, drained, overwhelmed, and resentful, not because they don't have power, but because they never activated it through boundaries. You have to understand this truth. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They are about controlling your access, your space, and your sanity. They say, this is what I allow, this is what I don't, this is what gets a response, this is what gets silence, this is where I end and someone else begins. Boundaries are how you teach people how to treat you. Every time you allow disrespect, you're writing a permission slip for it to continue. Every time you justify mistreatment, you're telling the world that your peace is negotiable. And let me tell you, once the world sees your peace as a bargaining chip, you will never stop trading pieces of yourself just to maintain temporary approval. That's why your silence must carry the sound of self-respect. Not coldness, not pride, but conviction. The kind of conviction that says, I love myself enough not to explain why I walked away from dysfunction. I love myself enough not to shrink to make you comfortable. I love myself enough to be silent and still and strong in the presence of chaos because my peace is not up for discussion. Most people don't lack the ability to set boundaries. They lack the courage to enforce them. They fear backlash. They fear being seen as difficult. They fear losing people. But let me ask you this. What's the cost of keeping people who drain you, disrespect you, or derail your focus? Is their comfort worth your constant anxiety? Is their approval worth the slow erosion of your self-worth? Because every time you stay silent in the face of what violates your values, you betray yourself. And the greatest betrayal isn't what others do to you. It's what you allow to be done in the name of keeping the peace. Real peace is not the absence of conflict. It's the presence of clarity. And clarity comes when you know where your limits are and you have the courage to communicate them, sometimes in words, but more often in actions. Silence is powerful when it's rooted in self-respect. You don't need to explain why you don't entertain certain people anymore. You don't need to justify why you no longer respond to manipulation, gossip, or passive aggression. Your silence says everything. It says, I've grown. It says, I see what you're doing, but I won't be moved by it. It says, I choose my energy over your attention, and that kind of silence is deafening to those who are used to controlling you through chaos. When people can no longer reach you through guilt, when they can't bait you into arguments, when your emotions no longer dance to the rhythm of their dysfunction, you become unshakable. And let me be clear, unshakable people aren't born, they're built. Built through pain, through patterns, through moments when you finally say, enough is enough. Boundaries are not just for toxic people. They're for everyone, including those you love, because love without limits leads to entitlement. When people believe they can treat you any kind of way and you'll always be there, they stop valuing your presence. And the moment your presence becomes predictable, it becomes invisible. That's why your boundaries should not bend every time someone says, but I'm family. Or, but I've known you forever. Or, but you used to be different. Yes, you were different. You had fewer boundaries. You tolerated more. You lacked clarity. But now you know that love is not proven through sacrifice. It's proven through self-respect. You can love people and still say no. You can care deeply and still create distance. You can forgive and still move forward without revisiting the same cycles that drained you in the first place. Setting strong boundaries will make some people uncomfortable, especially those who benefited from your lack of them. That's normal, but don't let someone else's discomfort dictate your direction. Your growth is not meant to be palatable to everyone. Your evolution will threaten those who prefer the old version of you, the one they could manipulate, the one they could guilt into staying silent, the one who tolerated what they would never accept for themselves. Let them be uncomfortable, let them talk, let them wonder what happened. What happened is that you woke up to your worth. You realized that being available to everyone left you empty for yourself. You realized that trying to be liked by everyone made you lose respect for the person in the mirror. And now, you're not living for validation. You're living for vision. That kind of power doesn't need to yell. It doesn't need to argue. It just moves differently. When you set boundaries, you reclaim your time. You protect your energy. You create space for peace to grow and purpose to flourish. You finally have the clarity to build, to dream, to heal, to become, because you're no longer spending your energy managing other people's emotions. You're no longer stuck in the cycle of over-explaining, over-giving, and overcompensating. You've stepped into ownership, and ownership always begins with boundaries, so set them high, set them firm. Set them not to punish others, but to protect yourself, and let your silence speak where words are no longer needed. Let it speak of your strength, let it echo your growth, let it radiate self-respect so strong that it's felt before it's heard. Because when you respect yourself enough to define your space, you teach the world how to meet you in it, or how to leave. Either way, you win. Walk away not to prove a point, but to protect your purpose. There comes a defining moment in your life when you realize that not every battle is yours to fight, not every conversation deserves your reply, and not every relationship belongs in your future. That moment is when you finally understand that walking away is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's not about proving that you're right or making a dramatic exit so someone regrets how they treated you. No, walking away is about alignment. It's about choosing your purpose over pettiness. It's about recognizing that your time, your peace, your energy are far too valuable to be wasted in places where you're only tolerated, disrespected, or distracted. See, when you're clear on who you are and where you're going, you stop trying to fix what's committed to being broken. You stop negotiating your worth with people who benefit from your confusion. You stop waiting on apologies that never come, and instead you take back your power, not with noise, not with revenge, but with quiet, intentional exit. Because nothing screams strength louder than the person who walks away, not to prove a point, but to protect a purpose. Purpose is fragile when you place it in the hands of toxic people. Purpose requires clarity, and clarity cannot coexist with chaos. You cannot fulfill destiny while being constantly derailed by dysfunction. And yet, too many people stay stuck in places that drain them, defending their presence out of guilt, fear, or habit. But let me tell you something. Just because you've invested time in something doesn't mean you owe it your future. Just because someone helped you once doesn't mean they get lifetime access to your energy. Just because it used to make sense doesn't mean it still serves your next season. Growth means outgrowing, and walking away is often the most powerful step toward leveling up. It's the moment you say, "This no longer fits where I'm headed," not out of bitterness, but out of boldness. Not because you hate them, but because you finally love yourself enough to choose peace over permission. And yes, people will misunderstand your exit. They will call you cold, selfish, arrogant, ungrateful. But let them. You're not walking away for their understanding. You're walking away for your alignment, because every time you stay in a place that no longer honors your growth, you dishonor your own evolution. Every time you explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you, you drain yourself of the clarity that's needed to build, And every time you stay too long in spaces that shrink you, you delay the future that's been waiting on you to say, I'm done. See, when you walk away with silence, with maturity, with strength, you tell the world, I know who I am, I know what I carry, and I refuse to negotiate that with people who are not ready to grow. There is power in presence, but there is even greater power in absence. When that absence is intentional, when you walk away, you create space, space for healing, space for clarity, space for the right people to enter. Space for your purpose to breathe, because sometimes purpose is suffocating under the weight of dead relationships and toxic patterns. Sometimes purpose is screaming in the background, drowned out by the noise of people-pleasing and emotional manipulation. But when you walk away, when you step out of the chaos and into your calling, everything changes. Your vision gets clearer, your decisions get sharper, your peace gets louder, and the person you were always meant to become finally has room to show up. Don't walk away out of ego, walk away out of elevation. Don't do it to make them miss you. Do it because you miss yourself, the version of you that wasn't constantly in survival mode, the version of you that dreamed freely, that loved deeply, that walked confidently. That version is still inside you, but they're waiting on you to make a choice. Are you going to keep staying in places that drain you just to avoid being judged? Or are you going to walk boldly toward the future that's calling your name, knowing that silence is often the most powerful sermon you'll ever preach? See, the world teaches us to grind harder, work longer, endure more. But real strength is knowing when to let go, when to stop forcing what no longer fits, when to stop watering relationships that only bear the fruit of stress, when to say, I'm done proving myself. My presence is not a plea, it's a privilege. That's not pride. That's purpose, that's power, because when you're walking in purpose, you don't chase closure. You create it. You don't beg for validation. You embody it. And you don't fear losing people, because you know the right ones will always respect your growth, even when it takes you in a different direction. Purpose doesn't compete with drama. It doesn't wrestle with dysfunction. It doesn't beg to be understood by people committed to chaos. Purpose thrives in clarity. It grows in solitude. It expands in spaces where you're free to become, not obligated to conform. So stop returning to places that shrink you just to prove you're loyal. Stop defending your past at the cost of your future. Stop explaining your standards to people who only want to violate them. You don't owe anyone access to your peace just because you share a history. What matters most is your direction, not your past, not their opinions, not the guilt trips people send your way to keep you stuck. There's a version of you on the other side of goodbye that's stronger, freer, more focused. But you'll never meet that version if you keep entertaining what you've already outgrown. Walking away isn't abandonment, it's advancement. It's saying, I respect myself enough to choose alignment over attachment. It's saying, I'm willing to disappoint others so I don't keep disappointing myself. That kind of courage changes everything. That kind of clarity opens doors you didn't even know existed. But you'll never experience that breakthrough if you're still waiting on everyone to agree with your boundaries. So walk away not in anger, but in authority. Walk away not with malice, but with maturity. Walk away not to prove you're better, but to protect what you're building, because if your purpose matters, then your peace matters, and if your peace matters, then your boundaries matter. And if your boundaries matter, then sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to leave quietly, leave completely, and leave with your dignity intact. Because at the end of the day, your destiny doesn't require you to convince people who don't see your value. Your next level doesn't begin with them. It begins with you. And when you walk away for the right reasons, with the right mindset, at the right time, you don't just protect your purpose. You step fully into it.